So, imagine getting banned for life from an MIT PhD program, right? And then somehow using that spectacular failure as the absolute blueprint for understanding ancient spiritual perfection.
It sounds like a stretch, I know.
It really does. But welcome to today's custom deep dive, everyone. We are unpacking an audio source from Pastor Chiang that, well, actually pulls off this exact mind-bending pivot.
Yeah, we're looking at how a 2,000-year-old text, the Gospel of Matthew, specifically maps perfectly onto the brutal, high-stakes origin story of a modern tech empire.
Which is just a massive intellectual leap.
It is, but Chiang really makes it work. He's exploring this concept of sanctification, which he describes as the second goal of spiritual hunger. It's basically defined as this relentless, ongoing pursuit of holiness.
Right. And to set the stakes for that, Chan looks at Matthew chapter 5, verse 6. This is the really famous verse about hungering and thirsting for righteousness. But there's a linguistic catch here, right?
Yeah, the original Greek grammar actually changes everything. There's a definite article placed right before the word righteousness.
Okay, so what does that mean in plain English?
It tells us we aren't talking about a generic, I paid for the guy behind me at the drive-thru kind of goodness.
Right, just basic human decency.
Exactly. This is a very specific divine perfection coming directly from God. And here's the really brutal reality Chiang lays out for us. You can never actually achieve this perfect holiness while you are alive on earth.
Wait, really? Never?
Never. He says anyone claiming they've hit the finish line of complete sanctification is just being, wildly arrogant.
Okay, hold on. Let's unpack this right here. Because if I'm told right out of the gate that I can never actually achieve this perfection in my lifetime, aren't I just signing up for an unwinnable, completely frustrating game?
That is the logical question, yeah.
It feels like running a marathon where the organizers just drive the finish line away in a truck. Like, why even tie your shoes? Why keep trying?
Well, the answer why anyone would play a game they literally can't win, Chiang actually ignores theology entirely for a minute.
Which is a great pivot.
Right. He goes straight to the global tech supply chain, specifically to a guy named Morris Chang.
Yes, the founder of TSMC. And if you look at Morris Chang's actual background, it is wild. So he attends Harvard in 1949. Then he transfers to MIT, grabs a master's in mechanical engineering, and then he just hits a massive wall. He goes for his PhD at MIT, fails the qualifying exams twice, and gets permanently banned from the program for life.
A very spectacular, highly public failure.
Yeah.
But Chiang connects the dots here. Chang doesn't let that permanent no freeze him in place. He enters the workforce, keeps grinding, and eventually earns a Stanford PhD in 1964.
Oh, wow. So he did get the doctorate eventually.
He did, and from there he builds TSMC, the semiconductor giant that is now internationally known as Taiwan's sacred mountain of protection.
Because they basically hold up the entire global tech supply chain. I love a good comeback story, but how does failing out of MIT and building microchips actually explain the pursuit of divine holiness?
So it comes down to a really powerful metaphor Chiang uses. He compares it to rowing a boat upstream.
Okay.
Rowing upstream.
Right. Think about the brutal pace of the tech industry. If you stop innovating, you don't just stay in one place. With Moore's Law and the constant churn of new products, the current of innovation actively pushes you backward.
Yeah, in tech, 3 months of standing still means total obsolescence.
Exactly. And Chiang uses this secular reality to explain human nature. Spiritually, if you aren't actively pursuing growth, human nature defaults backward. You just don't stay neutral.
Ah, I see. So sanctification isn't about sitting in a static, perfect state of Zen somewhere. It's the continuous, exhausting act of rowing.
Right, you're constantly fighting the current.
And when you inevitably stumble or, fail your metaphorical MIT exams, you don't drown.
Yeah.
You rely on divine grace to absorb that failure, and you just keep pulling the oars.
That is the core mechanism right there. You're moving from a spiritual infant drinking milk into a mature individual eating solid food. The failures aren't bugs in the system, they are the engine of growth.
That is such a fascinating way to look at it. Yeah, because perfection is impossible, you are forced into this relentless cycle of relying on grace, learning, and pushing forward.
Which really, if you think about it, completely redefines how we measure our daily success, whether you're navigating the fiercely competitive corporate world or your own personal spiritual journey.
Exactly. The point isn't to claim a final victory. The striving itself is the point.
Right. When you realize the finish line is just a mirage, you finally start focusing on how well you're actually running the race.
Which changes everything.
It does. And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to take away. we started by asking why anyone would play an unwinnable game. But if the most meaningful and transformative goals in life, whether that's building a global tech pillar or pursuing deep spiritual maturity, are explicitly the ones we can never perfectly achieve, how does that change the way you define success in your own daily routines tomorrow?